Welcome back to MidPoint. We would like to bring you up to date on the story that we have been following now for well over the last hour. The ISIS terror group has published a new video. It is titled "A Second Message to America." They are showing purportedly the beheading of American journalist Steven Sotloff. Sotloff speaks to the camera before he is killed, saying he is, quote, paying the price for U.S. intervention. Considering that he was a captive, we need to always keep into account that these may have been words that were scripted for him. There is no timeline on this when it was actually shot, but it is now out. It has been confirmed by several news organizations, including the Associated Press. So again, the video purports to show the beheading of a second American journalist, Steven Sotloff, the young video journalist from South Florida. You may have seen in the last week or so his mother, who has been begging for his life, but apparently that all fell on deaf ears. We are working to find out more about this story. We will bring it to you as the day goes on. Let us now continue. The number is simply staggering. Allegations that over 1,400 kids in an area of the United Kingdom were the victims of sexual abuse over a 16-year span. And now reports the entire matter was covered up by local officials. In light of recent stories about the widespread nature of sex trading, kidnappings, and sexual abuse run rampant, it makes us wonder if such a thing could happen, or even is happening, right here in America. It's a pleasure to welcome back to MidPoint syndicated radio talker, former attorney, co-creator of the Amber Alert system, which has saved countless lives. Rick Roberts joins us today. Rick, thank you so much for being here again.
Thanks, Ed.
Rick, I, like so many other people, when we saw this story, it literally took us back, and there was a gasp from place to place and time to time, that all of these children, over 1,400 of them, may have been abused, and the government in the area basically knew about it and shut it down. How, and you certainly have experience in so many different cases, and here in America, might this be one of the most heinous things that you've heard when it comes down to the possibility of exploiting children and sexually abusing those and hiding it for a long time?
Ed, it boggles the mind. It's hard to even play that what-if game. I know in Jessica's law, little Jessica Lunsford, kidnapped by basically a neighbor, held for several days, brutally raped, poor little girl, and then buried alive with her teddy bear. You have to take that and you have to separate yourself. A lot of people ask me after 19 years of doing this, how do you keep doing it? You have to separate yourself. The case you're talking about, 1,400 children, and quite honestly, the abuse verges on torture. I don't know how else you would classify it. But the reasons, you have to put that right here. Now you got to go after the reason it happened. You have to go after the so-called city officials. Personally, I would go in, I'd clean house. They were afraid of being termed racist. They were afraid of unrest. They were afraid, I'm sorry. Once you take the innocence of a child, you're done. That's over. One strike and you're out. I don't care if it's Indiana, Wichita, Kansas, or the UK. A child is a child. This has been the dirty little secret of the human condition for far too long. It's time to stop it. This was outrageous, Ed. When you brought it to my attention, I was speechless.
Let me also bring up the point that you talked about here now. The perpetrators, according to the report, were mostly men of Asian or Pakistani origin. Until the convictions of 5 local men for a range of sexual offenses, there had been few prosecutions in this town. Residents are saying that the leaders were either incompetent or too cozy with politically influential members of the local Pakistani community, which makes up about 3% of the population there. And the problem was an unwillingness, now this is according to a report in the Wall Street Journal, an unwillingness to criticize local Pakistanis for fear of appearing racist. Rick, exactly. I know you touched on it briefly, but there are those people who will say that this certainly may not be exclusive to the United Kingdom. There are people now who are asking if something like this could be happening right now here in America. Could it?
And I believe it is, Ed. I believe it is. And there will be those people that will throw rocks. I've been doing this for 19 years. I'm used to that. I believe there is, this touchy-feely, can't we all get along? Well, it was just incest. That's even worse, in my opinion. But you can't tell me with virtually no southern border at all. And I've talked to former and current Border Patrol agents, and what they say, quite literally, I couldn't even repeat on this show. So you can't tell me that at least the potential doesn't exist. I mean, we've got our plate full with child abuse, sex offenders, repeat offenders. We just talked last week with someone that wanted to take people off the sex offender roll. I'm sorry, we can forgive legally, but we're not going to forget. I truly believe if this thing goes long enough, you guys keep on top of it, we're going to see something, God forbid, from my mouth to his ear, something like this in the United States. And by the way, as far as the UK, I'd like to hear David Cameron, the Prime Minister, speak out on this. I don't care if it's Pakistani, Asian, it doesn't matter, the ethnicity. You know, no cohesiveness in a community is worth this price, period.
I want you to listen to a soundbite. This is Javed Khan. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Bernardo's Children's Charity, talking about anybody who cares about children needs to be shocked. This cannot be allowed to occur. I have a follow-up on this. Here's the soundbite.
There was a systemic failure at senior leadership level across Rotherham's agencies. It is totally unacceptable, must never be allowed to happen again. People may have taken their eye off the ball. I think lessons have been learned.
Rick, I need to ask a direct question here. I know you alluded to it just a couple of minutes ago, but let me ask you this. In your experience, you've been doing this a long time. Do you have any doubt in your mind whatsoever that simply because of the fact that we have people here who do not want to be seen as racist, they do not want to go after a minority community, that they do not want to be seen as picking on a certain group of people, is there any doubt in your mind that here in America there are people who are hiding almost the same, if not the same sort of problem for the exact same reasons?
Based on 19 years of doing this, based on statistical data, based on human beings being human beings, there is no doubt in my mind whatsoever.
Is it then time that we put aside the cultural sensitivity and address problems that may be linked to certain minority groups, majority groups, whomever it is, but simply take the color, the race, the idea out of it and go after whomever, whenever, and wherever? And what will it take for us to get to that point?
Oh, my answer came before you even finished. Amen, brother. You got to take the political correctness out of it. You got to take the short, tall, fat, thin, black, white. Doesn't matter. We're talking about children. They deserve a chance. And all of this, we're the big people, as I said the other week. We're supposed to be watching out for, well, we can't say that. We'll offend this group. We may offend that group. What about those people over there? Forget it. The politically correct nonsense has got to go away if we're going to make some change, whether it's the UK or the United States. And I'm sorry. The debate we had last week with the statistician, it doesn't bear out. You caught the guy for 3 or 4 sex offenses. Yeah, when he was faced with a polygraph to stay in the program, all of a sudden it's 75 or 100. It's got to stop, Ed. It's got to stop. And you can't do it with political correctness. You can't do it with political partisanship. It's got to be straightforward, straight on, let the chips fall where they may.
Then where do you start, Rick? Where do you start then?
You start in your own community. You start with these people that say, well, it's really not that bad because it's incest. As far as I'm concerned, you molest a child and you're related to the child, that's even worse, because not only have you violated their body, taken away their innocence, but you've taken away their trust. That stays with them forever. We need to make this something that nobody wants to do. And a lot of this doesn't have anything to do with sex. It has to do with power trips, and some of these people have more baggage than UPS. Stop all the warm, touchy-feely, well, he passed the psychological profile in prison. Well, of course he did. There's no 5-year-old kids in prison. We've got to stop this. We've got to stop playing with this and put some meat into the thing. And I mean serious teeth into the laws. And I know there are some good guys doing it. I had to lobby Sacramento for a GPS bracelet. Well, it's too expensive. Well, what's the price of a child? What's the innocence of a child worth? Tell me what that price is. I'll go raise the money. We've got to stop this nonsense, and we got to stop worrying about politically correct. It's got to start in our communities, in our neighborhoods, and then, quite honestly, if the prosecutors aren't getting it done, get rid of the prosecutors. If you've got some legislative judge that, well, he didn't get a pony when he was 5, or he was potty trained backward, that doesn't make any difference. If it's an adult molesting a child, there is a price to be paid for that, and they gotta pay it.
I've got about 30 seconds left here. So with what we are looking at right now, and apparently these were city officials that were involved, do we need to start holding these people to attention for criminal activities and take these people who cover up and start putting them in prison?
They are culpable, absolutely, without a doubt. I'm sorry. You see something like that, you're speaking for a defenseless person, whether it's a young child or an elderly person. If you know this is going on, and if you are actively covering it up, you are just as guilty in my book, and you need to spend some time behind bars.
Children as young as 11. Raped by multiple perpetrators, abducted, trafficked to other cities in England, beaten and intimidated, and the city officials covered it up. Rick, I hope next time we get to meet under better circumstances, we talk about some positives, but indeed it's something that I know that you will be on top of, and we will as well. It's something that deserves the attention. I thank you for your time, as always.
Anytime, my friend, anytime.
All right, later on this hour, do you trust your doctor? Wait until you hear the number of mistakes that they sometimes make and the human cost of those errors. After the break, though, the miracle heart disease drug that may be exactly as detailed, that and so much more coming up right here on MidPoint, where we question everything.